Welcome to our series that is being hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit chapter, Unique Voices in Films. And I'm very happy to say that recently we have also collaborated with CMN TV, which is, it's in Troy, but they cater to 11 cities in Oakland County, and they will be airing this segment later on through their channel, which is channel 18 in Comcast and WOW for residents of Oakland County. Today's guest is Mr. Stephen Slancik, and Mr. Slancik is principal of Schuchard Elementary in Sterling Heights. And he's been working with the Utica Community Schools for over 24 years. I'm very happy that he's here today because he has a lot of experience with Chaldean students and Chaldean parents. And he will update us about information regarding an award that Schuchard Elementary recently received, as well as what is going on with the pandemic and how the school is handling that and how are they bringing students back into the school. Hello, Mr. Slancik.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for making the time to come here and inform us about a lot of the things and the changes that are happening in the schools. What I would like a little bit is just if you can give us a background of who you, of your experience with the school district and what have you noticed over the years about the Utica Community Schools. I know, that you guys receive a lot of awards actually, whether it's Schuchard or the community in general. So if you can just give a little bit of a background about that, it would be great.
Sure. So I've been, as you said, with Utica Schools for 24 years now. I started out as actually a special education teacher. My degree coming out of college was a dual major of psychology and special education. And then after just a few years, I only was a teacher actually for 5 years. I became a principal. So I've been a principal now for 19 years. And I've been kind of at the all ends of the school district. If you're not too familiar with Utica Schools, it's a very large school district. It's 77 square miles and it has 27,000 students. So we have 25 elementary schools in Utica. We're the second largest district in the state behind Detroit Public Schools. So I've been, I started my career at Schweitzer Elementary, which is up in Shelby Township. I then moved to McGahey Elementary, which is actually torn down now. There was a few buildings that closed, and so that elementary is no longer there. Then I was at Havel Elementary, which is also in Sterling Heights, and finally now here at Schuchard Elementary. I'm starting my 7th year here at Schuchard. And as far as the district is concerned, there has been, especially in the Sterling Heights half of the district, the district is kind of Shelby Township and then half of or 2/3 of Sterling Heights. So when we think about that Sterling Heights portion of the school district, there's been a pretty significant change over the 24 years that I've been in the school district as far as diversity and a far more diverse population in our Sterling Heights area. And then to give you a little context of Schuchard itself, Schuchard has approximately 70% of our students speak either Arabic or Chaldean or both in the home. Someone in their home speaks one or both of those languages. And then we have a smattering of other languages. There's about 15 other languages where we have small little populations of kids who speak those. And so when it comes down to our population, only 15% of our kids, so approximately 1 out of every 6 or 7, live in a home that doesn't speak a second language. In most buildings that you would talk about, you'd have a small population of kids where in their home, someone else speaks a second language or they do, but in our school, it's kind of a role reversal. 85% of the kids go home to a household where a different language is spoken in addition to English. So we're a pretty unique place, and what we've done, and we can talk about more throughout the interview, is we've really tried to use that to our advantage, and it's worked out pretty well for us.
Well, yes. So one of the awards that you received recently was the Diversity Distinction Award that was handed to you by the city of Sterling Heights. And how did you get that? Obviously, now what you said, I didn't even know the numbers were so high, that 85% of.
Yeah, yeah. So here, you know what, I have the award. I'll first show everybody the award here so we can see.
Yay.
Yes. And it's an interesting story of how this came to be. So I'm going to take you back to February 2019. And as most of you, I'm sure know, February is uh, um, what February is when we celebrate Black History Month in the schools, and we've been doing this for quite a while, and our efforts in all schools, not just Schuchard. This would be all of Utica, all of the state of Michigan, all across the country. There's been an effort to try to celebrate Black History Month more and more during the month of February. So I was actually sitting in a principals meeting with fellow principals from Utica, and one of our central office administrators was talking about some ideas of things we could do. And it hit me, and I'll be honest with you, I was a little embarrassed because, again, this was, I was 5 years into being the principal at Schuchard, and it just hit me, is there an Arab American History Month? And so I quickly Googled on my phone, and sure enough, there is. Now, this is a fairly new thing. I think it just got, I guess, a national recognition a few years back, but April is Arab American History Month. So what I said, oh my gosh, we need to do something for this. So I immediately, within a week after that meeting, I set up a meeting here. I have 2 teachers in my building who are Chaldean and 2 teachers who are Lebanese. So I brought the 4 of them together with myself and sat down and I said, hey, I never knew there was an Arab American History Month. We need to do something for this. And I quickly learned a lesson about the word Arab and what that means to different groups of people. So initially, my 2 Chaldean teachers said, you know, we're not really big fans of the word Arab. In fact, to a lot of Chaldean people, that word can be offensive. Now, which I didn't know, and admittedly, right, I kind of thought that the word Arab just meant someone from the Middle East, but it turns out there's a lot of different feelings and history behind that word. So my 2 Chaldean teachers were not a big fan of the word Arab, and hence celebrating Arab American History Month. So then my 2 Lebanese teachers said to me, well, we're not a big fan of the word Arab either, because we take our history back to the Phoenicians, not Arabs, and so we really don't like that word either. And so here I'm like, okay, well then if, you know, my largest group, the Chaldean population is not, or this could offend them, and then my teachers here who are Lebanese, this offends them, then we really can't do this. So what are we going to do instead? So what we came up with was, instead of celebrating Arab American History Month, we switched it to what we called a cultural celebration, where regardless of who you were or what your background was or what your history was, ethnicity, race, didn't matter. We were going to have half the day where it was kids celebrating whatever they were and whatever they wanted to celebrate. And then half the day we had groups come in to talk about specific cultural, we had, I'll go to the list here. We had the Friends of Historical Hamtramck come in. We had the Arab American National Museum come in. We had the president of this Diversity Council for the City of Sterling Heights, Willie D. Chavez, came in and did a presentation on Filipino culture. So we had a learning portion, and then where kids could do their own presentations and celebrate whatever culture they associated with. And the day went awesome. And how, as I mentioned, the president of that group for Sterling Heights, their Cultural Diversity Committee, how he came to come to this was, I actually went to one of their meetings because I wanted to ask for resources and for if they had any leads on groups that I could invite to this. And so that was my start with the City of Sterling Heights Cultural Diversity Committee. And once we had the Cultural Celebration Day, it went so well and the word got back to that group. And then there's also a connection because one of our teachers, her name is Amy El-Zaheni, her sister-in-law, her name is Cosetta El-Zaheni, is on that committee. And so between all these connections and the city having a part in our Cultural Celebration Day, that is how it came to be that we got nominated and then won the award for the Diversity Distinction Award was given to myself and the staff of Schuchard Elementary And I can read it's a very nice, it says, in recognition of practices that promote, recognize, and reward diversity in the city of Sterling Heights. And the beauty of it, and this is a good time to mention this, with being not only with Schuchard falling in Sterling Heights and within Utica schools, both of those entities really do an exceptional job of trying to promote and celebrate diversity. So, as much as I'm proud of our school and proud of our building and proud of our staff, and we've done a great job, it is helpful when you're not having to fight against your own district or fight against your own city, because all the groups, the city we fall under and the school district fall under are both really promoting, in Utica, we use cultural proficiency is the term we use, right? Where we don't want to, a lot of people just want to acknowledge diversity. We want to go beyond just acknowledging it. We want to celebrate it. And so that's our goal, right? We don't want to say, oh, hey, we welcome everybody. Well, that's pretty easy, right? But when you say that, are you really celebrating everybody? Are you really trying to make sure that everybody feels like they're an important piece of the puzzle in your building? And that's kind of the route we've taken. And as I said, and I know you mentioned, we've been blessed enough to win many awards at the building. We were a reward school, named a reward school by the state of Michigan. And the beauty of it is the state of Michigan gives that honor to schools in 3 categories. And we earned it in 2 of the 3 categories: overall growth and what's called beating the odds, which means that we were scoring above other buildings that were similar to us. We were named a National Title I Distinguished Schools Award finalist. We were been named to the Mackinaw Center for Public Policy's list of most improved elementaries twice. So we've had the honor of getting many awards, with the Diversity Distinction Award being the latest that we're very proud of.
Yeah, well, what you said is, it's one thing to talk about diversity, and then it's another thing to incorporate it into the school, and so that the children can really feel it. So we were, even the Chaldean Cultural Center has come to the school where, in front of a large students, and who got to hear about their history and their heritage. And it was very easy to create that, to schedule that, because how much you respect and understand the value of that. And prior to the Chaldean Cultural Center coming in, just my observation over the years, because my kids attended Schuchard Elementary, is that there's been many people that have come who the students can connect with, including, I forgot the name of a priest, but a very popular priest in our community. They're also popular in different ways, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think it was Father Anthony that at that time was very, and then he was invited in, and it was, and this is the extent of you showing how much you care about the students and really making them feel like you understand their culture and their heritage, and honoring them in that way. And you have additionally, this is something that I'm interested to kind of get your view on, because I know that at what point I met with you and the administration at Schuchard and some of the teachers. I did an interview for the Chaldean News about Schuchard, in which you really, you gave a lot of in-depth insight about the dynamics of what you saw as the Chaldean American students, the Arab American students, and their parents, their relationship, what was needed, what are the things that you were trying to reach out to the parents and say. I don't know if the things have changed then, but what were the issues before and what are they today? And what is something that, like, a lot of Chaldean parents are going to be hearing this, that their kids are in the school, what would you like to tell them, and how can they participate more into their students' lives, or what are some things that they need to hear from you?
Yeah, no, and I'll answer that in just a second, but I want to piggyback on a couple things that you mentioned. So yeah, when we talk about celebrating kids, you hear this word tolerance a lot in today's world, right? And even though people use it as a positive, we kind of look at that word as kind of a negative, I'll be honest with you, because we don't want to make kids think we're tolerating them. If you say we're tolerating you, that means, hey, you're different, but we'll kind of put up with you, right? You know what I mean? So people think, oh, we preach tolerance. We don't want tolerance. We want where, you genuinely enjoy people for who they are, you know, where you celebrate them. You don't just tolerate them, you know. I mean, tolerate sounds like, hey, I went to a restaurant and I looked around and there were, you know, Asian, Chaldean, and Black families, and I tolerated it because what was I going to do? That's not the attitude we want. You know, we want, like, we're celebrating you. And then you kind of hit on this a little bit. Yeah, we've spoken on a few occasions to some of the major Chaldean churches in the area, and we have to use that to our advantage because, as you know, and as I'm sure the parents know, the Chaldean community, and especially to Chaldean children, right? There is such an intertwining of religion with their whole life. Like, you know, and I'll admit, like with many of other people in the community, like church and God is something you think about on Sundays, right? And the rest of the week, you know, yeah, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. With so many of our Chaldean students, like church and God is every day to them. Like if they give, with our kids here, if you say, oh, you're done with your work, why don't you draw for a few minutes? They're drawing crosses and they're drawing like things they learned in church. So to the Chaldean community, religion is not something that is just a part of their life. It is that their whole life revolves around that. So it's a bigger deal. And so we have, again, tried to take this concept and use it to our advantage, not to just say, well, you know, okay, that's how things are. Like here, the separation of church and state is far different than most places. You know, again, we're not, teachers aren't teaching any sort of religion, but kids bring it up. And so when you say, hey, what'd you do last night? And a kid started, well, I went to church because it was my, you know, my communion or whatever you want to say. And we let them talk about it. We let them share ideas. We want the kids to know that, you know, whatever is important to them is important to us. That's the message we're trying to get out. Now, you talked about what would I say for Chaldean parents, and from early on, and you were one of the first parents that we met with, you know, in the early years. One of the things that we've really tried to make parents understand is that there is no need to be embarrassed about your level of language proficiency. And we still fight that to this day. We have a lot of parents who, because they believe they don't speak perfect English or that their English is limited, that keeps them away from being part of the school. And that's not necessary for a variety of reasons. Number one, we want every parent involved. So that's just kind of the basic premise. But number two, we have so many parents here who speak Arabic, Chaldean, or both, that if you truly are limited in your English, we have a ton of people that can communicate with you. And so that doesn't become a problem. And we're not asking parents to come and teach, you know, 6th grade math concepts. We want, well, right now is different because we can't have, you know, volunteers in the building because of the pandemic. But under normal circumstances, we're asking, you know, to, you know, work with kindergartners on letters and sounds, flashcards, make copies. So oftentimes parents believe that their language skills are a limitation that would make the school not want them to be part of it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, another piece of advice, and hopefully I can make this make sense to parents. There's kind of, if you think about parents, there's 3 levels, right, of your English skills, right? There's a parent like yourself, you know, that's been, that there's no issues. You understand, you can speak Chaldean Arabic, but you understand complete English. There are the parents that are the complete reverse, where there's almost 0 English or 0 English, right? And so when they come in, we know immediately we need to find someone to interpret, and so that we can communicate with them. That actually level of parent, when there's 0 English, is easy for us because we have so many people that can translate, and we know that we're getting the right message. Where we struggle, and what I would ask parents of, is don't ever pretend to understand us when you don't. And unfortunately, we get a lot of parents who do just that. Their English is decent, right? They have conversational English, right? If you ask them, oh, how's your family? How's your day? They can answer. But when it comes to speaking academics, right? When we try to explain to their child, like, hey, your 5th grade student, they're struggling in social studies. It's because they're not, you know, they shake their head, yes, like they understand us, but they don't. So what I would say the most important message to parents is, if you don't understand something and it's because of a language barrier, don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel like you have to pretend that you understand. Simply ask us for a translator. And again, here we have so many, not only staff, but parents, we don't ever use a parent translator when it's something that is a private, conversation or something that but most of the time, right, if like example right now with the kids coming back to school, we have a lot of parents who are struggling to understand the busing, right? Well, that's not a private concept. We can have anybody. So on any given day at a dismissal or arrival, we have 50 parents here who can translate for us. And I can just grab one of them, the parents that I know, hey, Mrs. Whoever, come on over and help me with this, and we can get it done fast. So that's one of the things that I always try to, and it's easy for me to say, but I understand it's a hard concept because for many parents, it's a little bit embarrassing. They don't want to act like they don't understand, but we would much prefer you to just say, hey, I'm not getting what you're saying. Can you have somebody say that to me in Arabic instead of leaving, not understanding, and we're not solving the problem? Does that make sense?
Yes, because I do know of parents that are like that, who are in a situation where the communication level is affects their children. It affects their children. So the teacher is talking about the status of a student and issues or challenges that they're facing, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and the parent and the lack of communication that happens really leaves either not understanding fully or just grasping the things that she did understand, and then kind of coming to say, like, to me after, when I'm not even in the meeting, and saying, well, the teacher, I think, and there's so much confusion, and I can't help at that point because I'm not at the meeting. I don't know exactly what happened. And she's trying to solve the issue when I'm not there, and the student is not there, the teacher is not there, and it's all from what she grasped. And so there's a disconnect a little bit there, but of course, yes, as I know that your school tries to address that as much as possible. And I guess what we could do as parents who are maybe more proficient in the English. I mean, I came here when I was a child, and usually the ones that have a hard time came as an adult. One of the things that we can do is help communicate that to the parent. Whatever you're saying now, when we hear it, is communicate that to the parent. You need to address this early on and explain to the teacher or the administration or whoever that you're not understanding this, so that they can handle it early on rather than come and share it with a friend, hoping that they could resolve it.
No, absolutely. And then another thing that and this would be maybe for other schools or academic institutions that have a large Chaldean population, is there's a little bit of a difference maybe per se that with us translating documents. And here's why. Number one, and I'm sure you guys have come across this, that when it comes to the Google Translate, oftentimes with Arabic, it doesn't work out. And so we try to, if Spanish, it works out great, or French or something like that, but we don't need that. But when you try to use Google Translate or anything else in Arabic, it oftentimes changes the meaning to the point where, I had a thing at an open house, and all I wanted to say was, welcome to open house. We're thankful that you're here. And I, translated it, handed it to Amy Elzaheni, and she said, this is telling people we're thankful you came to dinner, and so.
Well, I think Mrs. Elzaheni probably got a good laugh out of it.
Right, yes, yeah.
I'm laughing is because I have attempted the Google Translate, and it's very funny what comes out of it.
Yeah. And then the second thing is, and I promise you, this is not meant to disrespect anyone, but what we found with many of our parents is you assume if they don't read and write English, well, then they must read and write in Arabic. And unfortunately, with a lot of our parents, the educations they received during their time in Iraq were very substandard. They weren't given the education that you would have thought they were. So there are a lot of our parents that are illiterate in both languages. They can speak Arabic and Chaldean no problem, but when it comes to writing and reading Arabic, they're not the greatest at it. So even if we can get it translated properly in proper Arabic where it makes sense, some of our parents cannot read that either. So where I'm going with this is what we try to do, and it's not that we're not willing to translate things into written Arabic, but we'd really much prefer if a parent needs something and they're not understanding, that they call or stop in. We grab a person who speaks Chaldean or Arabic and have them translate it verbally. and that way there's no worry that we're getting the wrong information, or that we're that it didn't say exactly what we want to. We just avoid a lot of complications by doing the oral or verbal translation. So
well, you guys are definitely trying your best. So, and like I said, I've seen that over the years, and you keep putting more and more effort into it. And with that said, what you said earlier with regards to volunteering or anything, because the buildings are now different than before. So last question, which this is probably everybody's, it's like, this is a question that might even change within a week or two, who knows, but
yeah.
COVID-19. So just today I was watching the news, and the infections and hospitalizations, they're surging in the United States. And we received an email not long ago that the schools are going to be, the Utica schools are going to reopen in November.
Yes.
Schools have already opened, like Troy and such, and some schools haven't, everybody's different. So, what is the situation with that? I know that you're doing hybrid, and, how, like, should the child feel safe to come back? Do the parents have an option? I know a lot of them don't feel comfortable to send their children back. There's so many questions, and parents are right now, literally, like these days, are calling each other thinking, I'm not comfortable sending my child. Are you going to send them back? And they're kind of like trying to understand what's safe. What do you say to that?
Well, no, and it's a very hard and complicated answer. Before I maybe give you my thoughts and opinions on this, I should say one thing that, and you guys are probably aware of this early on, and even now, I shouldn't say this early on, throughout this pandemic, the news has reported that there have been specific minority groups that have been hit harder than others by not only more cases, but unfortunately more deaths. And on the news, you hear about the largest populations. They may report on the Hispanic population or the African American population. And because the Chaldean community is relatively small compared to some of the other, they don't get much, we'll call it news. But I know for a fact, by being so connected with this community, that the Chaldean community, especially in our Schuchard Sterling Heights area, was hit very hard with coronavirus. And I think there were a couple different reasons. Early on, when many things had to shut down and many people were able to isolate at home, a lot of our parents are business owners, and a lot of them are business owners that couldn't shut down, whether it be stores, gas stations, whatever. They had to stay open to allow. And so many of our dads, unfortunately, did not have the option to, like I did, to stay at home for months and not bring anything to and from their communities. They were forced to keep their businesses open. And then there's a second factor where many of our families, the Chaldean families, have multiple generations living in their households. It's not uncommon to have grandma and grandpa living with you. And so when you've got dad still going to work and grandma and grandpa in the household, it was a bad combination. And so unfortunately, many of our families, even now, I'll get emails or phone calls from parents saying, Mr. Slancik, my kids aren't going to be online for the next couple of days because their grandma died or their aunt died or things like this, and again, we know that, like, Chaldean families, their family dynamic is closer than, quite honestly, maybe any group that I've ever known. I mean, when like for me, right, I'll get word that my second cousin passed away. I'll be I'm so sorry, that's sad, but in a Chaldean community, like it affects them a great deal. It is, family is everything. And the idea is that if you're a part of our family, we're going to take care of you no matter what that entails. That the family is very special to them. So it's been this kind of double whammy. They've been hit hard by Corona, and because family is so important to them, they've really taken it hard, many of our families. And so when I lead into that, in August, the families had the option of choosing what's called the virtual academy, which meant that regardless of what the district decided about bringing back kids, if you kind of knew that you weren't going to want your kids brought back, you could sign up for virtual academy. And at the time, we have about 630 kids at Schuchard. About 140 kids signed up for the virtual academy, meaning we don't want our kids coming back. regardless of what the district decides. Then we got to the point where this past week we brought kindergarten and first back. And as you talked about, November 2nd is 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, and November 9th is 5th and 6th grade. And parents again have the opportunity if they want to switch over to that virtual academy. And as of right now, we've got, this is a close, but I want to say about 35 more kids that have switched over to that virtual academy because they want to stay out of school for a little while longer. I think back in August, a lot of families, they thought it would be done by now, as did I. You know what I mean? I thought, you know, things are going to wind down. Things are going to die down. This is not going to keep going. And sure enough, here, as you mentioned, this past week, the numbers have gone significantly back up. So again, because so many of our families have lost loved ones, you know, and lost grandmas, grandpas, aunts, whoever, and or knew someone that had it and had to be on a ventilator, you name it, many of our families are scared, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? And so, and there is, you know, a fear by many people. And what I would tell families is you've got to forget what you know, everything else, and think about you and your family. And that's the best advice I can give you, because you know, your next door neighbor might say, what, this is all a hoax, you know, we don't need masks, why are you, and then you know, your other next door neighbor might never come out of their house because they're afraid. And you can't worry about what others are doing right now. You've got to worry about you, your family, and what you think is best, because you know, nobody knows. It's all speculation right now, you know. And if people say, oh, we'll be fine once the vaccine we get that, or we won't be fine, it's all guesswork, you know. People are guessing right now. So and I you know, me personally, I have 5 kids, right? And what I do based on with my decisions for my family is I think to myself, what is the decision that if I make it, I'm not going to regret it down the road? And that's how I want to live my life. You know what I mean? Like if I say to myself, well, hey, you know what? I don't care. Let my daughter go hang out with her friends today, and I'm sure she won't get it. I could regret that, and I don't want to have any regrets. You know what I mean? So if that means on that day I say to her, hey, you're going to stay home today, and you know, we'll try next week. There's lots of time left in life, but there's not lots of time left in life if you're not around for it. You know, so that's how I'm dealing with my family. But I would tell parents that do not worry about what your neighbors say. Do not worry about what your you know, friends in another district say. You decide what's best for your family, and if that's sending your kid to school, awesome. If it's not, then I respect that. Now let's get into the kids we're sending to school. We've had kindergarten and first grade here for a week so far, right? And I got to tell you, I am ecstatic about how things went. Really, I am. We've got everything from the minute they get here. We've got dots outside on the playground to show them where to stand lining up so they're 6 feet apart. Every kid's wearing a mask. We're not letting any parents into the building even to walk their kids in. Even kindergartners, they drop their kid at the door and they have to leave. We've got half the kids at a time, so half AM, half PM. The district has been great about providing, quite honestly, I can't believe I'm going to say this words, but too much PPE. I'm having a hard time storing all the boxes. We've got masks, hand sanitizer, gowns, what you name it, right, for whatever we need. We've got a health room specifically for, you know, because we've got here in the clinic at the office, if a kid gets hurt or, you know, is, you know, bleeding on their knee or some such thing, but we don't want anybody who has COVID symptoms coming to the office, because then you'll you know, contaminate everything. So we have a specific room. We're using our science room where that's only for COVID symptoms. So if there's a kid who, you know, showing up to school and all of a sudden he's looking like, uh-oh, his cheeks are red, he's probably got a fever, we don't bring him to the office and infect everywhere. We take him to that health room where we have a specific parapro that watches them in there until the parents come get them, keep them away from everybody. We've got a lot of great things in place. I'm actually like, you know, because everybody was scared bringing the kids back, even us, right? I got to, even though I firmly believe that kids need to be in school because that's how learning takes place the best way, right? It's much better than online, but everybody was nervous, including myself. But after a week under our belts and seeing how things work and seeing that the kids, you know, are taking things seriously, even kindergartners, wearing their masks, washing their hands, I feel so much better about things, and I feel like we will be okay. Nothing's a guarantee. You know, there have been buildings that have had to shut down classrooms because a kid gets it or a teacher gets it. So it's not like it's never, there's no way we're going to avoid every case, right? In a building our size, there will be kids who get positive tests. There will be parents. We'll have to at certain times shut down. I'm sure of it. But overall, we're really keeping the kids safe, and I've been happy with it, I got to admit.
Thank you so much for this information, because it's very important that you're really you're handing the responsibility back to the parent, that it's up to them what they feel, so that they don't feel the pressure. At the same time, you just gave us a clear idea of what's been going on, because the kids have, you're right, the kindergartners, I forgot to mention them, and the first graders has started to go back. And we're curious also updates on that, because we don't, we don't know all the details regarding just the fact that they went back. And we're kind of asking the kids about the situation rather than the teachers or the adults.
Sure.
This was so incredibly informative. Thank you so much. And really thank you for putting so much effort to understand the children, their culture, their heritage, their backgrounds, so that they can really feel, as they grow, that assimilation and acclimation into their Eastern Western world. So it really helps to have a school that has this kind of attitude, a principal like yourself and the teachers. And this is one of the reasons a lot of the parents that stayed with the school and didn't want to go through the online academy is because they love their teachers, they love their communities, they love the students that they're with. They really love that, and they do want to go back. The whole hope is that, yes, this will be over. They don't want to leave any of their teachers,
right?
Because that's how much, and the children are actually, I was telling them, I was amazed that, like, we want to go back, we're ready to go back, we miss the school. And I'm like, really? And these are the kids that just kind of were so happy when the school shut down, but now they're very excited. So it's not them that doesn't want to go back, which is like a miracle in itself. It's just our concerns. But explaining all this is wonderful. And it really says a lot about the kind of school that you guys are running. And thank you so much for all of your hard work. And we look forward to, seeing how things develop and having you back to give us updates as well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And, the kids are just like the parents, right? Everyone wants their world back to normal. And you're right. Kids always say, oh, I don't want to go to school. But when push comes to shove, they like it because it feels normal, And what I would tell you is for anyone who watches this, not only are you welcome to contact me with any questions or anything like that, but also with any advice, for any parents who are out there who because we're even though we're very happy and very proud of what we do, what also has really served us well is we don't ever sit back and say, hey, our work is done. We're still looking for ways to improve. We're still looking for ways that we can make things better for Chaldean families, but all families here, you know what I mean? So it's, and so if there's anybody who watches this on any of those platforms that you talked about and has, any advice or think, hey, have you thought of this or questions for me? You're always welcome to, Schuchard Elementary. You can Google us and, email me or call me, whatever you want. And please reach out if I can help you in any way.
Yes, and I can vouch for that when we reach out, you guys are very well in responding and you respect every individual question and concern. So thank you very much. Thank you
so much for having me. I appreciate it. This has been great. Yeah.
Thank you. You have a wonderful weekend. Thank you everyone for watching. Take care.
Thanks. We'll see you later.